Kakra's legs pounded against the dirt path as he ran as fast as he could, his breath ragged and his heart racing. In his hand was a delicate yellow flower he had carefully picked from the garden. He had to be first. He had to be faster than Payin, just this once. But no matter how hard Kakra pushed, no matter how much his lungs burned and his legs ached, he couldn't catch up. Payin was already ahead of him, sprinting like the wind, clutching a perfect violet flower in his hand. "Wait!" Kakra called out desperately, but Payin only glanced back with a playful grin. He had always been faster. When they reached the front porch, their mother stood waiting. She beamed when Payin handed her the violet. "Oh, Payin, what a beautiful flower, and so fast too. You must have such sharp eyes to pick the best one." Kakra, breathless and a little defeated, handed over his yellow flower with trembling fingers. His mother smiled softly at him, but the word she had just spoken to Payin echoed in his mind like a taunt. That evening, as rain pattered gently against the window, Kakra lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his mind consumed with thoughts of being better, faster, and stronger than Payin. He wasn't going to lose again. He couldn't. Before dawn, he slipped out of bed and crept quietly outside. His heart was pounding with determination as he made his way to the nearby farmland. Their father loved pears, and Kakra knew that sometimes the best fruit would fall from the trees overnight. If he could just get there before Payin and bring home the perfect pears, maybe, just maybe, his dad would praise him instead. Kakra quickened his pace as he neared the pear trees, his clothes becoming soaked by the relentless drizzle of rain. But when the trees came into view, his heart sank. There, standing under the tree, was Payin, his basket full of the ripest, most beautiful pears Kakra had ever seen. Payin turned around, his face lighting up when he saw Kakra approaching. He smiled, completely unaware of the weight pressing down on his twin's heart. "Look at these, Kakra. Dad's going to love them," Payin exclaimed, his voice full of excitement. Kakra's throat tightened. The walk back home was long and silent, the rain mixing with the tears that he didn't allow to fall. When they reached the house, he stood quietly in the doorway, just in time to hear their father's voice. "These are delicious, Payin," his dad said with pride. "You've always known how to pick the best of the best." A lump formed in Kakra's throat as the praise washed over his brother once again. And in that moment, something changed inside him. He no longer felt the childish envy of wanting to be faster or better. No, this rivalry had turned into something deeper, something more painful. From that day on, Kakra vowed to surpass Payin in everything, no matter what it took. As the years passed, the rivalry between the twins intensified. In school, Payin always seemed to be one step ahead. His grades were better, his teachers adored him, and he never struggled the way Kakra did. Every time Kakra felt like he was catching up, Payin would soar even higher, and it became a constant reminder that no matter how hard he tried, he was never quite enough. Even in adulthood, the story remained the same. Payin became an accountant at a prestigious firm, his good manners and charm earning him respect and admiration. Kakra, determined to carve out his own path, became an auditor, always on the lookout for mistakes, constantly scrutinizing numbers, always with a lingering thought of somehow, some way, surpassing his brother. But then came the diagnosis: cancer. Their father, the man who had once praised Payin for his perfect pears, now lay frail and weak, the weight of the illness bearing down on him. The treatments were expensive, and the family was struggling to keep up with the mounting medical bills. Kakra worked hard, pushing himself to the limit in the hopes of making enough money to contribute, but it never seemed to be enough. And Payin, though always smiling, always polite, started to change. Kakra noticed it in the way Payin spoke less, the way he seemed more distant, the way stress etched itself into his face. Then came the day Kakra was sent to audit the very firm where Payin worked. At first, he felt a pang of guilt, a small voice in the back of his mind telling him to tread carefully. But, as he pored over the numbers, as he scoured the records, he stumbled upon something he never expected to find. It was small at first, a discrepancy here and there, but the deeper he dug, the more alarming the discovery became. Payin had been embezzling money. Kakra sat back in his chair, his heart pounding in his chest. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Payin, the golden boy, the one who always seemed perfect, had been stealing from his company. And as Kakra went over the numbers again and again, the realization hit him like a punch to the gut. Payin had been siphoning money for their father's cancer treatment. For a moment, Kakra felt a wave of sympathy. He understood the desperation. He understood the fear of losing their father. But then another thought crept in, darker and more insidious. If he reported this, if he exposed Payin, he could not only secure a promotion, but also receive a significant financial bonus. With that money, he could provide for his father's treatment himself. He could be the hero finally, the one to save the day. The image of his father's frail body flashed in his mind, followed by the memory of Payin smiling under the rain, holding the perfect pears, unaware of the darkness that had begun to consume Kakra's heart so long ago. Kakra closed his eyes, the conflict tearing at him from within. This wasn't just about rivalry anymore. This was about family, about sacrifice, about love. I need to be the hero, at least this one time that matters the most. Even better, Payin needs to feel the pain of failure. He murmured to himself. Tears welled up in Kakra's eyes as he made a bold decision. He walked into his boss's office the next day, the file clutched tightly in his hand. But instead of handing it over, he paused, staring at the report that held his brother's fate. With a deep breath, Kakra placed the file back in his briefcase. "The audit's clean," he said quietly, his voice barely steady. "This is the most transparent firm I have ever worked on." His boss nodded and dismissed him. Kakra walked out of the office, feeling both lighter and heavier at the same time, the weight of his choice pressing on him. He wasn't the hero today, but maybe, just maybe, he had become something better. That night, Kakra approached Payin, who was sitting in the living room, his face drawn with worry. "We need to talk," Kakra said, his voice low. Payin looked up, his eyes filled with concern. "What is it?" Kakra took a deep breath. "I know about the money, Payin. I know why you did it." Paying's face paled, and he opened his mouth to respond, but Kakra held up a hand. "I'm not going to turn you in," Kakra continued, "but we need to do this right. I've got a plan, a way for us to get what we need without getting caught." Paying's eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" "A heist," Kakra said, his voice steady. "We can take what we need and make sure no one ever finds out. I can cover it up, make the records clean, but we have to do it together. No, I am already filled with regrets over what I did. I can barely sleep at night, overwhelmed by the constant thought of being caught." Payin replied immediately. With a subtle smile, Kakra leaned close to his brother and whispered, "We've poured our hearts and souls into these companies, but when it really matters, they never vouch for us. We have to take it the hard way." Payin stared at his brother, a mixture of shock and disbelief on his face. Then slowly he nodded. "If it's for Dad, I'm in." And so, the brothers, once rivals, began planning their master heist. Kakra, with his knowledge of auditing and finances, laid out the groundwork, while Payin, with his access to the firm's accounts, set the plan in motion. It was a dangerous game, but for the first time in their lives, they were on the same side. When the day of the heist finally arrived, the brothers executed their plan flawlessly. Kakra manipulated the records, erasing any trace of their actions, while Payin transferred the funds, ensuring that their father would receive the treatment he needed. As they sat together that night, watching over their father, they knew that their lives had changed forever. The rivalry that had once driven them apart had now brought them closer than ever before. And as they shared a quiet moment, they realized that in the end, they had both won.
Thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be the first to get new exciting contents.